be the best of friends.
We're still the best of friends.
No, you're not.
Who says we're not? Sit somewhere else. Now, if I've done something to you, just tell me what I've done to you.
Well, you didn't do anything to me. I just don't like you no more.
You didn't like me yesterday.
Why does he not want to be friends with you no more? Why is he 12?
What the hell's going on with you?
ML. He's dull.
But he's always been done.
The other night, 2 hours you spent talking to me about the things you found in your little donkey shite that day.
Well, it wasn't me little donkey shite, it was me pony shite, which shows how much you were listening.
You asked interrogator question around my face. Gone.
What are you doing?
That is not paid for by them. That is paid for by the people of Detroit.
You might be qualified, ML.
So I'm not qualified for this job.
Let me tell you something. You want to go right now? Okay? You want to go right now?
Hey kids, it's your old pal ML Elric, alone again, naturally. But no, I have Mark Fellhauer's back, and me wee little friend Sean Windsor.
You guys aren't friends anymore.
He's off looking for blue diamonds. Yeah, we don't know where he is. But yeah, I mean, his donkey's shite, his pony's shite.
That would have been your response to what he said. He would have called you doll.
He would have called me doll?
Yeah. Uh-huh.
What? Mr. Entertainment?
You got to see the Banshees of...
Mr. Worldwide?
I don't even know how to pronounce the word. Inishiran. It's been nominated for every Golden Globe. It's pretty damn good, though. But I thought of you watching it because it takes place in 1923 Ireland, which seems right up your path.
Oh yeah, a lot of my life has been lived as if it was 100 years ago in a small country that nobody cares about. That's about right. So, yes, Mark is back and fully recovered. Sean is celebrating the graduation of his son, or perhaps his son's parole. We're not really sure. He didn't give us a lot of details. It was sort of a last-minute thing. Sean, like some of our colleagues at the Free Press, is on furlough because the media continues to struggle with providing you quality news that folks just don't want to pay for. So if for no other reason than to give Sean some place to go and to spare his family, please subscribe to the Free Press. It's only like $1 for 6 months, and I think you can get 12 months for $12. Go to freep.com and we'll figure it out. I'll put a link up on our website, which is mlsoulofdetroit.com, so you can figure out how to do that. And so we can give Sean some place to be other than sorting through his pony or his donkey's shite, which I don't know, maybe that's a move up for Sean. He's been watching a lot of Pistons, so it can't be that much worse. But we have a special guest today, and like all our guests in the show, is brought to you by Luke Nowacki and Pinnacle Wealth Strategies and David Hall Financials. One guy will help set you up for retirement. The other guy will help you save some money that you can spend right now. We're going to talk about them after we hear from our guest, Teresa Baldus of the Detroit Free Press, who has published a series of revelatory articles in the aforementioned Free Press that call into question a lot of the narrative that we've had about what went on in the Oxford shooting. Now, you remember we had the Oxford School Board, or former school board treasurer, in who said that people had been told, to his belief wrongly, that the district had done everything it could to prevent a killing like this.
Corey Bailey.
Now, we've also been told for a year by the prosecutor and others that Ethan Crumbley was supposed to be sent home and that his parents refused to take him home. Well, now some exclusive reporting by our guest, Teresa Baldus, who should know that I vacuumed the stairs yesterday, so that should get me a break, is calling into question this notion that the Crumbleys refused to bring their kid home when there were indications that he was a danger to himself and others. So, Teresa, thank you for joining us from our East Lansing Bureau.
Thanks for having me.
That's all you got?
Yeah.
Okay, well, it's great to see you.
I love the chemistry between you two.
Yeah, that's the least she's said to me in one sitting in 30-something years. But, Teresa, briefly, if you can, recap for us what your reporting has changed about the public's understanding of what happened a year ago in Oxford.
Sure. So we'll start with what you touched on, and that is, did the Crumbleys refuse to bring their son home? The narrative that's been out there so far has been given to us from prosecutors, and it's one of where the Crumbleys have been sort of described as this defiant couple that shows up into the counselor's office and hears all this stuff about their son needing help. And sort of the image we have and the narrative that's been out there is that they were defiant, arms folded, and insisted that he be sent back to class. That they refused to bring him home. And what we found out from these depositions is that's not really how it played out in the counselor's office. The parents went in. They told them their son, has been drawing some troubling pictures of a gun, the blood, the comments, the thoughts won't stop, help me. But they also disclosed to the parents that their son is struggling, appears to be sad, has some issues, and said we think he needs to be seen. And then the direct quote from the depositions is that the parent said, well, is it possible for him to stay in class because we have to go back to work and we will get him into therapy? And they thought about it and they said, well, sure. He, they, checked his attendance record. It was fine. His grades were average. He'd never been in trouble before. And so as long as the parents were willing to do this, they decided that being in class would be the best place for him to be. And so it wasn't one of these, oh no, we're not leaving without him, which is what we've been led to believe so far. And the other big one is that the school has claimed that they told the parents, listen, you have 48 hours to get him help, or we're going to report you to Child Protective Services. That never happened either. The counselor said, I never said that, but he was thinking that in his head. I found a statement from the superintendent after this shooting happened, and he sent a letter to all the parents stating the Crumbleys flatly refused to bring their son home. And then he went on to say, and we told them we will report you to Child Protective Services if you don't have him seen. Again, so we have a different narrative from school officials. We have a different narrative from the prosecutor. And then finally, after all these months, because of lawsuits that have been filed, we get to hear from the characters actually involved about what really happened.
So depositions, for folks who aren't familiar with this, are interviews done under oath by a lawyer. And in this case, the people who were deposed were counselors and teachers and the staff at Oxford High School. Is that right?
That's right.
And that's how depositions go, too. Basically, the lawyer tells you everything and says yes or no. And any other person answers. But it never works for me so well, unless it's on this show. We're going to have Teresa on
now,
more often.
Two of those depositions, like you said, were the teachers that had reported Ethan Crumbley, I believe, the day before. Kubina, I think, was one of the teachers' name, and
yes.
Karpinski.
Yes.
And I felt a little bit, I felt bad for them because here's two teachers that are trying to do what they're supposed to do. But so why are they included in the lawsuit? Is this just one of those things where you sue everybody? I mean, do you have any idea? Like, why are they included?
Well, the plaintiffs claim that if the teachers would have taken this more seriously or followed up, that simply reporting it wasn't enough. So in these depositions, I didn't get into the weeds because I don't want to lose readers, but in the deposition, the lawyer would ask him, okay, so you sent this email about Ethan looking at a violent video on your class. Did you ever follow up to make sure they got the email? Did you ever go to the office and say, hey, did you ever meet with him? And so the allegations of the suit is that the parents could have done more, or not the parents, I'm sorry. The teachers should have done more, follow up more, and that they didn't. There's another teacher who I thought this was real telling. She was the math teacher who reported the troubling note with the gun and the bleeding body and the thoughts won't help me. She was so alarmed that morning by what she saw that she didn't bother to waste her time with an email. She marched right down to the office and said, hey, you guys need to see this. So she went a step further. But these other teachers, they reported it, and the lawyer contends that, did you ever follow up? Did you ever make sure that they actually saw this and what they were going to do about it? So, and the answers were no. They just, presumed that it was going to be handled. And that's one of the arguments in the lawsuit is, okay, teachers, you did all this and you were expecting the folks down the hall at the main office to take care of it, and you should have done more. I'm not saying that that's accurate, but that's the claim.
Yeah, I don't want to be their defense attorney, but at the same time, wasn't it just one day before, when they report? I mean, how soon are you supposed to follow up on something like that, which I guess is...
Well, two of them reported him one day before. Two of them reported him one day before. Also on the day of, another one reported him. So, for example, he was in the same class. He was looking at bullets in his English class, and his teacher reported him for that. Well, she had a co-teacher in the class that knew about her reporting him for the bullets. That next morning, on the day of the shooting, she sees Ethan in class watching a violent video of a guy mowing down people and shooting down a bunch of people. So she, on the day of the shooting, also follows up and says, hey, listen, he was looking at bullets yesterday. Today he's looking at a violent video. These two teachers who yesterday's story really include a lot of their text messages, they never knew that on the day of the shooting that a math teacher had also reported him. They never knew until after the shooting that Ethan was called into the office, that his parents were called. They didn't know any of this. All they knew was what they reported, and what happened afterward they didn't know.
Do you know, ML, you mentioned Corey Bailey was in here, and it was a lot of hush hush. The union doesn't want you to say anything. Insurance company doesn't want you to say anything. I thought it was interesting, Teresa, in your article yesterday, those two teachers are trying to talk to the principal, just trying to find out information. And he immediately is like, I can't say anything. And then they're told by their union rep, don't write anything down, which, it's to me that I feel like those are people that don't want to get to the truth. It's kind of a covering your ass situation. Is that normal for the union? I totally expect because, but is that normal for a principal to say, I can't say anything, and to lock it down to his teachers?
Well, you have to remember that he said that I can't say anything. We're talking within like maybe an hour of the shooting. So this had just happened. I mean, they've just identified these kids. They've just arrested Ethan. I mean, and I'm sure he was probably, when he said, I can't say anything right now. I don't think it had even been disclosed yet, like who the suspect, but the police had to interview people to find out, who Ethan Crumbley was. And so it was also fresh and so in the moment. I mean, I'm not here defending the principal, but I presume
he didn't want it to get out.
Timeline that's what happened.
He just didn't want the name to get out because the police didn't want it out.
It hadn't gotten out yet. I mean, it had just happened. And, so these text messages too, that I talked about yesterday with the teachers going back and forth with one another. I mean, that was on the day of the shooting. And when they talked about, oh my gosh, the looks on their faces, and we felt so bad about the counselor and the anti-bullying coordinator, you have to keep in mind that this had just happened. The anti-bullying coordinator had just identified 4 dead children and naturally was a wreck. Just to add some context to their text messages.
One of the things that concerns me with what we've been hearing on these airwaves is a lot of contradictions to what has been presented as the narrative. And I say the narrative because it's coming from a couple places. It's coming from the prosecutor. It's coming from the school district. We haven't even heard defense attorneys, to my knowledge, up to this point saying, hey, the parents didn't say we won't take the kids home. We haven't heard defense attorneys say, hey, or even Ethan Crumbley say, hey, nobody was concerned about me, or that people didn't see me as an immediate threat. Why is that? And what does the prosecutor say about information that now seems to contradict this case that she's been making for a year?
Well, the defense attorneys will say, no, we have been arguing that, but no one will listen to us because the loudest microphone is on the prosecutor. You got to remember the prosecutor. I mean, she was on Good Morning America, CNN, public press conferences. We had all these details about the Crumbleys that, just painted them out to be the worst parents in America. They're drinkers. They cheat. They ignore their kid. We had all that out there. But the defense attorneys have said all along, you know what? Our clients did not know a lot of the stuff about their son. They didn't know about the journal. And they always said from the get-go, we did not refuse to bring him home. We had to go back to work. This is being mischaracterized, but nobody really listened to that. I don't think even we, the media, listened to that. This is not new. In fact, when the story came out, they're like, finally, someone is saying what we've been arguing and no one will listen to us.
So let's back up. If people have been saying this and we haven't been listening to it, why is it a big headline in the Detroit Free Press?
because it was never said publicly. There's a gag order in the Crumbly case now where neither side can talk about it. But I think if we go back to initial, I do know in my initial reporting when we all wrote about it, we'd have the prosecution's narrative first, and then we'd have some paragraphs with the defense saying, no, that's not the case. This is totally being misrepresented. The facts will come out. Our clients didn't do this. We did report it, but it was just sort of lost in the maybe the sensationalism of it all.
Well, the anger too. I mean,
the anger.
I'll tell you right now, I hate those parents. I don't like them. I think they did a terrible job raising their kid. I'll say it. I'm not going to buy my kid a gun for Christmas too. We've seen their text messages, but I've always said too, I don't know if they're guilty here because I don't know if you ever expect your kid to shoot up a high school, no matter what kind of evidence you have.
Right.
And it pisses me off, though. This is kind of another issue because they're fighting. They want bond because they're not a threat to run. But did they or did they not run?
They insist they were not on the run. This has gone back and forth, and their lawyers do make a good point. They hired us. They retained us. Who hires a lawyer and says, meet me at the courthouse tomorrow, and then goes on the run? I mean, they retained, some pretty good high-profile attorneys to represent them.
Well, maybe they're the first because they did disappear. I mean, they were hard to find. There was a hunt
right.
for them.
Well, here's the thing, though. And again, this is how the narrative came out. They hired their lawyers. The lawyers reached out to Karen McDonald's office and said, listen, we will be representing them. We're going to be at this hearing tomorrow. They're trying to arrange to bring their clients in. In the meantime, the Crumblies say, we're fearful for our lives. We're getting, death threats, social media. Everyone hates us. We got to get the hell out of our house as fast as we can. And they did go to motel at one point, and then they left there and they said to their friend who has this Detroit art studio, can we camp out here the night before? And that they plan to turn themselves in on the morning of. And their lawyers claim over and over again that we were trying to arrange that with Karen McDonald's office and she would never return our calls. Instead, what she does is has this 4 p.m. press conference, announces criminal charges, calls a fugitive task force, and sets them out to go find them, which, the prosecutor still insists, listen, these guys were on the run. They had 4 burner phones. Now the defense says, well, they have 4 burner phones because the police took their phones and told them, listen, you guys better get some burner phones because we're confiscating these as part of the case. It goes back and forth. Were they on the run? Were they not on the run? Both sides make some pretty compelling arguments.
So quick hello to Don and Ed who are watching us on Facebook and YouTube. You can see us there too. Facebook page is ML Elric. YouTube is ML Elric as well. We made it kind of simple, although we may be changing that name. We appreciate if you subscribe and hit the bell for an alert so you know when we go live. But I want to go back to something we talked about a moment ago. I think the reason why this was a big headline in the Free Press, and justifiably so, is because while we've heard from the prosecution and we've heard from the defense attorneys, they're advocates. They have objectives, they have clients, they have a purpose. These depositions are from the eyewitnesses. These are from people who are a part of this before it went down, and they are not trying to put anybody in jail, and they're not trying to get anybody out of jail. Now, they are named in a lawsuit, and perhaps at some point they'll be released from that lawsuit, but the reason why what they're saying is significant is because these are the closest to objective sources that we've had in the past year who are speaking. And to Mark's question about why are they named in a lawsuit, I think that's a really good question because you don't need to be a party to a lawsuit to be deposed. You can be subpoenaed. Yeah. And deposed just because you know something. So I don't know, Teresa, if you've talked to the folks who are filing this lawsuit, how they feel about these people who are speaking in the deposition. But I got to believe if you're suing the Oxford Public Schools, and the Oxford Public Schools have been saying one thing publicly, and you have witnesses saying something that's the opposite, you got to be pretty happy that your case is looking a lot stronger than it was at the beginning.
Well, I do know these parents, and the teachers and the counselors who are being sued, I mean, they're heartbroken. They're heartbroken that these families are blaming them for their kids' deaths, rightly or wrongly. I mean, I know one in particular is absolutely devastated, insists I did everything I felt had to be done. In fact, the anti-bullying coordinator on the morning of the shooting that day, she was with one of the victims at an anti-bullying seminar at a middle school before the shooting happened, very close to one of the victims. And it eats at her that the parents now blame her for their son's death.
Is that Pam Fine? Is that was
Yes.
she okay? I had a question about her.
Sure.
Because in the article, there's a quote, I believe, from her deposition that I understand, because she's saying, if someone hasn't walked a mile in our shoes, you don't know what it's like. I'm not disagreeing with that, but she doesn't want to be judged on how they are handling things. Okay, that's fair enough. But then a few paragraphs later, she then judges the police response, which I thought really wasn't fair. And she says the time it took the cops to get there was a lot longer than what they say. Do we know how long it took the police to arrive? Was it 5 minutes? Was it 10 minutes? And did they want to go in, or were they not supposed to go in?
And that's actually still a controversial question. While the police maintain that they were there in 5 minutes, Bouchard has come out and said, we have this over and done within 5 minutes. And the timeline shows, no, it's actually closer to 10 minutes. And one of the boy who was in the bathroom with Justin Schilling, who was shot and killed in the bathroom. Yep. I mean, there's video of this kid when he ran out and ran to safety and survived. He came out much later. His text messages to his parents inside the bathroom when Ethan was in there contradict a little bit of the timeline that we're getting from the police. Now, back to how long it took him to get in there. Let's say maximum it was, they were in and the whole situation was over within 10 minutes. Yes, it's not Uvalde. You don't have that timeline. However, if you are Justin Schilling's parents and your son was in that bathroom, every second counts to all of, and I think that's what's really.
Well, that's the most frustrating thing, because every second.
In fact, I mean, there are so many details I didn't get into the story because at some point, you got to keep the reader's attention. But at the end, when they were looking at security, the surveillance, they're like, wow, they thought they had lost just 3 children. And then they found out we have a 4th victim. And they're like, what, a 4th? No, we're looking at the cameras. We've got it all. And they said, no, there's the bathroom. The video cameras don't go in the bathroom. And that's where 17-year-old Justin was killed. So it's this is such an awful story. Yeah. I can't even begin. But I can't step away without commenting on something that I also thought was noteworthy. And that is the gun culture in Oxford. This came up in everybody's deposition, and it's about why perhaps they didn't take the photographs, the things he was doing in class more seriously. Why wasn't he ever perceived as a threat? And, the counselor said this, the dean said this, the anti-bullying coordinator said this, the teacher said this. They said, this is a hunting community, and this is also a shooting community. I mean, kids go on a regular basis target shooting with their parents. You had a girl in her homecoming dress, post a picture of herself with a giant, assault rifle in her arms. Her dad was next to her. This is a community that it embraces, hunting, which, fine, target shooting. All of this is legal. No one is going to suggest that 4 children died because people in Oxford like to go hunting and target shooting. However, their radar was down. They did not take Ethan as seriously as perhaps they should have, which is what the lawyers are arguing, because guns are so popular there. And I think that's telling. That's something maybe they need to pay more attention to.
I also wanted to ask you mentioned the bathroom, and that reminded me of the security officer who I guess looked in the bathroom but didn't see anybody. And there's been stories about her saying that, I thought it was an active drill, which I think the school officer would know that. What do you know, as far as you can tell, what is the real story with the school security officer?
All right. So this is what I've been told is the real story with the security officer. when she did walk by one of the victims was on the ground, and I believe someone was given CPR at the time. She really did think it was a drill, because when the announcement came over that day, this particular officer was on her way out, but she was leaving the school before the shooting happened, and she went back for some odd reason. It's not that important, but she did go back. So when the announcement came on the intercom that said lockdown or Alice drill, she maintains, and her colleagues believe her, those who know her well, that she really did think it was a practice Alice drill, because they talked about recently having one. They never did. Alice drill is a live shooter drill. This is what you do to practice if there's a live shooter.
Every school.
And she claims she really didn't know that it was. And then after, when she realized that it was, when she was informed, no, this is a shoot, then she, got her gun on and went down the hallway and took it for what it really was. And that's when she opened that bathroom door and peeked inside and says she didn't see the anything in there. And there's a 4-foot tall divider in there, maybe even taller, where they were behind. So did she miss them? That's what the schools claim. So, and that's what she says.
Well, Teresa, thanks for putting this out here. I think we are a long way from knowing what happened. There's still some more parties to be heard from, but finally we're hearing some voices, again, some objective voices who are sharing what they saw. And we only know this because they gave depositions that were uncovered by Teresa Baldus and the Detroit Free Press. So thanks for your work. And again, I did vacuum those stairs. So when you get home, get off my ass. All right. I didn't hear a yes there. Okay, looks like I'm in trouble.
Wonderful.
All right.
Thank you so much. That's an early Christmas present. I'll take it.
Yeah, and you're going to be disappointed by the late Christmas present. But thanks for being on the show anyway.
All right, guys.
Good work. Yeah.
Thanks for having me.
Oh, it's so frustrating. It's really interesting what she was saying about, why are these people sued? Because this whole idea that they could have done more, or they should have done more. It's like, well, yeah. I mean, everybody, isn't it kind of the enemy of good is better? Everybody could have done more, but make no mistake, it is Ethan Crumbley that fucking pulled the trigger. Did people help him along the way or miss signs? Sure, but he is the main guy, and I feel like that sometimes gets lost in a lot of the finger pointing.
Well, and he's pleaded guilty, so even Ethan Crumbley agrees that he's responsible for these deaths. And
it pisses me off that the school seems to have very little interest at getting to the truth based on what Corey told us. So.
Well, this is a constant source of frustration for me too. When people start building these walls, and I've seen it plenty at Michigan State, and I think we see it a lot of institutions where people just don't want to be as candid and share as much information as early as they have it or shortly thereafter, because it's going to come out. And in our process, between the criminal justice process, where there's discovery, which means information is shared between the prosecution and the defense, when there are lawsuits, when attorneys are going to use their resources to uncover witnesses and documents and things like that, it's all going to come out. So once you have your hands around, I don't think anybody expects Oxford Public Schools within an hour or even 24 hours or maybe even a week to know exactly what happened. Mm-hmm. But it's been a year now. It's been more than a year. And for these very, very contradictory narratives to come out against, as Teresa was saying, the superintendent has said the Crumbleys absolutely refused to take their kids home. I think we know enough right now to say that we're grateful that they were not our parents. That isn't to say
I don't like them.
Yeah, that isn't to say that they had the easiest kid in the world, or that that fate dealt them a sweet hand. But to have them locked up for a year on a case this is a tough case.
Yeah,
this is something the prosecutor,
not easy one for them to win.
Yeah, this is going to be some groundbreaking stuff. And in the end, if she fails to win a conviction, whether that's justice or not, these folks have been deprived of their freedom for a year. That sucks.
Is there something to be said?
But it also sucks that people seem to be saying things about them that might not be true. And
is there something to be said?
That bothers me.
about, even if, and I know this isn't the right way to do it, so don't go down that road, but is there something to be said for scaring the shit out of other parents that, hey, you might want to keep an eye on them?
Well,
In other words, you're making an example out of these parents because, sure, legally, maybe they're not guilty, but I think societally, we don't like these people and we don't like the way they parented Ethan Crumbley.
well, that's where you start to go to motives, because Karen McDonald is a new prosecutor. She is a politician. Prosecutors are politicians. Now, they also happen to be lawyers, so they are politicians that have more qualifications for the elected office than
I don't think
most elected officials.
I don't think society would mind that motive if that's why it's happening. If it's done politically for her own benefit, yeah, then that's bullshit.
But she's been very out front with this. I mean, she's been pursuing this case. There are media consultants working on this case. She's done interviews, national interviews, so.
Seems weird. It seems
So
yeah.
I can't rule out that there's an agenda being pushed either to further her political ambitions or to make a case, as you suggest, that parents, if you're not keeping an eye on your kids, there are going to be consequences. And whether we get you with a conviction or we just jack you up for a year or more and, make you pay bank of legal of defense fees, you will suffer for this. If you're asking me if the Crumbleys were set free tomorrow, would I want them to live next door to me? No. Not a fan of the Crumbleys, not a fan of anything I've heard about the way they live their lives as a married couple, let alone as parents.
Yeah, good point.
But in this country, when you deprive someone of their freedom, that is the biggest and worst thing you can do to them. And so that's why the prosecution has the burden. That's why we make it so difficult in this country to take away someone's freedom, where we will let people who really probably deserve a good kick in the head walk around because we want to make sure that we're absolutely right on this. And by the time this whole thing is done, and there's way more to come, and it'll probably be another year and more before we've sorted through all the wreckage, but it may be that really what the prosecution of the parents is about is sending a message that, hey, if you're really into guns, you better make sure they're under control. If you got a kid that's a danger to the community, you better be on top of it. And if you're not, just take a look at the Crumbleys, and that's probably not where you want it.
And I do like what Teresa said about, this isn't Uvalde. If we're talking about 5 to 10 minutes of a police response, none of the police are being sued or anything in this. So I don't know. I think people tend to connect things like that and like, oh, the response was slow. It appears that the response by the police was good.
Yeah, so I don't know. And
As
just for
opposed to
folks
Uvalde.
who don't know about Uvalde, that's where the cops stood around and are like, well, should we go in there? Should we go? What's all that popping noise? Are those kids being killed? Well, maybe we'll go in, maybe we won't. Where they're more like the medical examiner than the police. And people there have paid a price for that in law enforcement. And I don't know what happened in Oxford. It sounds like the county sheriff provides police services in Oxford, so I don't know if they have an outpost that's that close to the school. I mean, if you're far away, getting there in 10 minutes may be a miracle. Anybody who's driven through Oakland County, I mean, depending on what time of day and what part of Oakland County you're in, an hour's a pretty good response time. I'm not saying whether 10 minutes is fast or slow or anything like that. I just don't know enough to say that. But I will tell you this, as someone who's covered a lot of first responder things, never do you get on the scene and talk to a witness who doesn't think it took too long for fire, for ambulance, for police to get there. Because when that stuff's going down, seconds feel like minutes, minutes feel like hours, hours feel like days. And so that's something else that's going to have to be determined. But with security camera video, with text messages, with, with 911 calls and stuff like that, they're going to be able to put together a timeline where we're going to know by the time this has all been chopped up, whether or not the response was efficient or deficient.
You mentioned earlier about sharing information. You know who loves to share information?
That's got to be either Luke Nowacki or David Hall or both of them.
Do you approve of that segue? I mean, that's a tough thing to segue out of. But I was going to mention Luke Nowacki. He loves sharing information if you're going to make a big financial decision, such as buying a new home, a new car, something even cosmetic for your person or your house, whatever it is. Whatever that big purchase is.
If vacuuming the stairs is not going to get you out, and let me tell you something about this. I don't want to drone on it, but we have sometimes 4 dogs in the house, and at one time we had 2 cats. Vacuuming those, that's not That's not an insignificant thing. I just wanted, I
That's
know
what
Luke
heroes
agrees.
do. You're such a hero.
That's it did take me more than 10 minutes to get to it. I'll just tell you that.
If you have one of these big decisions, though, you want to know how it's going to affect your current and future financial goals. That's why we recommend Luke Nowacki. Great guy. He's got Pinnacle Wealth Strategies behind him. He's got a whole team. He's going to help you plan for your future goals both today and well beyond. Call Luke today, 248-663-4748. He's going to give you a complimentary consultation to see if your plans align with your goals.
Because when you call Luke, he'll make it all about you, sweetheart.
Securities and investment advisory services offered through Royal Alliance Associates Inc. Member FINRA SIPC. Royal Alliance Associates Inc. is separately owned, and other entities and/or marketing names, products, or services referenced here are independent of Royal Alliance Associates Inc.
I just realized I was yelling to you with open mics. Sorry.
So yeah, we are going to go to Mark's a little rusty.
I still have COVID. Yeah,
he's a long hauler.
It's been a week. Can I use that excuse? I was thinking about that yesterday. Can I just use that excuse for like all of 2023 that I have long COVID and that's why my mind isn't working whenever I make a mistake?
Well, I'm going to have to consult Twitter because I posted on Twitter that I got my booster on Thursday.
What?
And I wish I'd posted I was thinking of getting my booster because then I would have known what a foolish endeavor that was and how it was going to make me more likely to get COVID. And somebody posted something that was fantastic. It just said, experts say you're 9.8 times more likely to die. No link to experts. No, not like 9.8. That's kind of a.
But that number's so specific. It must be true, right?
It's got to be. It actually may have been 9.79. They just rounded up.
Why do other people care? Okay, if they think it's going to kill you, then fine. Why do they care if it kills you? They can stand over your corpse and laugh.
Because I'm a sheep.
I got a lot of shit for wearing a mask on LaDuff's show. I'm like, why do you care if I wear a mask?
I've said this many times before. Based on the number of spokespeople that I've dealt with who smoke, drink too much coffee, love garlic, I'd like to see more people wearing masks, especially when they're a nose away from me telling me shit, because I've lost a lot of nostril hairs due to people who got the dragon breath.
I don't want to get sick with anything, cold, flu, whatever it is, and I don't want to give it to anybody else. Anyway, I digress. Hall Financial.
Yes, now they will make you well.
Yes, they have. I'm so over the. I have long COVID. I don't know if you've heard that or not. The holidays can be expensive.
We too.
No, it's gonna. I'm telling you, it's gonna go on for all of 2023. At least my excuses are. The holidays can be expensive, and right now, credit card interest rates are the highest they've been since 1996.
A long time ago.
I should have given you a chance to answer. I've got long COVID, in case you didn't know. These high interest.
You got in 1996. It's now year 26. Shit,
pretty much.
Really riding this thing.
Where am I? I don't know what I'm. Okay.
Barney's not buying it.
It's been since 1996. That's how high they are. These interest rate debts impact your everyday life. You can use equity in your home right now to get a cash out refinance. It's a great way to help put you and your family in a better financial situation for the holiday season. You can get a free 5-minute mortgage review with Hall Financial, and that's all it takes to becoming debt-free. Just talk to Hall Financial while you're looking to purchase a new home, refinance your current home. Call them, 866-CALL-HALL, or go to our website, ML Solar Detroit. There's a little link that'll take you to Hall's website. So once again, 866-CALL-HALL.
Oh man, the geeks have inherited the earth.
Did I do that?
What a dork.
Does him wanting to play with us again mean that he's turning into a geek, or we're turning into cool guys?
I'm sure you're following what's going on with this Sam What's-His-Nuts who just got arrested.
Sam Bankman-Fried?
Sam Bankman-Fried, right.
Yeah.
The guy who says he doesn't want to read books, he never reads books, all this other stuff.
The man with the most punchable face in America?
Yeah, exactly. The crypto bro, the young genius who's turned out to be basically full of shit. Let me be clear. What he did is way more than being a geek, and he is not our Geek of the Week. But if you invested in crypto because you thought a guy like this knew how to turn straw into gold, how to turn water into wine, I mean, people like Luke do a lot of research. They run a lot of models. They study stuff. Before they put your money somewhere, they're pretty damn well sure that it's got a track record of performing very well and that it's very safe. But a lot of people chase the quick buck. A lot of people buy into the easy dollar.
Yeah.
If crypto didn't look like a Ponzi scheme to you when it came out, you got to be kidding me.
It didn't look like a Ponzi scheme to me.
Really?
Yeah, it looked like gambling. and I like to gamble. So
Okay, fine. And there's no, what do they tell you with gambling? There's no, you could lose everything
expect
you bet.
to lose it all. Yeah.
Yeah, don't bet more than you can afford to lose. I put $10 in crypto in PayPal because if you put $10 into crypto and PayPal, they give you $10 in your account. So it's basically found money. But that $10 I put, I think the other day was down to $278. So yeah. So
let it ride now. You never know.
Yeah, so, well, it's not going anywhere. I mean, maybe 100 years, it'll be back to $10. Of course, I've lost the compounding I would have gotten on the $10. It would have turned into $1,000.
You're talking about cents.
But so if you invested in crypto and you thought Sam was going to be a man, I'm sorry. I don't mean to add insult to injury, but you are our Geek of the Week.
Oh, shoot. I have long COVID. I forgot to do this. Sorry.
Oh, that's okay. It's been 26 years. We're praying for you. Still praying.
Be good.
There's an all-night party in room 7609. And you can dance together all night if you've got the time.
So before we get to this week's entry in room 7609, which was suggested by listener Michael, who listens and suggests a lot of really great music, Matt on Facebook is saying, what about Jason Carr? I want to talk about Jason before we sign off because Jason and I are now both refugees from Channel 4 and both former Fox 2 employees. But did anybody see what was said that cost him his job? Apparently he said something on his show about some coworkers. If you saw what that was, please let us know. You can post on Facebook, YouTube, or send us an email at mlsoul.
Send us an email. Don't post
at gmail.com.
Don't
yeah.
post it.
But I mean,
I'll tell you what I know off the air.
Off the air. Oh, damn it! That sounds.
Or I'll send you an email.
It's unconfirmed, or it's that hot.
Could be wrong. It could be wrong.
It's
because I have long COVID. So
well, and it's we're getting ready. We're gonna have to start putting your COVID with like Roman numerals. This is Mark XX. But I can't imagine what he said that would have cost him his job. I worked with Jason at Fox 2, and he's a really talented dude.
I worked with him at the radio station when I think he was on Dominski and Doyle for a while, so we'd bump into him.
Yeah, and he was at the State News.
He seemed like a nice guy.
Right after I left the State News, so I'm very curious to see where this is going. And
I don't want to see anyone lose their job, so.
No, I mean...
Maybe it was horrendous. I don't know. It's crazy.
I don't know, but it's hard for me to believe that it was a fireable offense, given some of the other people we've seen on TV around here who have done things and have held out of their
to that
job.
point, I will say this. From what I've heard from sources, most of them secondary, if that's what it was that caused him to lose his job, there has to be more. Does that make sense? Is that too cryptic?
I don't know. I mean... Channel 4, a reporter went to jail and then was back on the air. So, I mean, it's just, I'll tell you off the air.
Can you email it? Email it into the show?
But yeah, so that's something we're hoping to get to the bottom of. But in the meantime, Strawberry Switchblade joins us for our Women in New Wave month, which still continues to carry over from our Great Covers month. So here's Great Women, Strawberry Switchblade, covering another great woman, Dolly Parton, with Jolene.